Would you believe this birthday cake is actually a card? And yes, it still fits inside a regular A2 size envelope. Today I'm bringing back those sweet childhood flavors of strawberry and chocolate to create a fun cake shaped birthday card filled with beautiful sentiments and a few little surprises along the way. Hi everyone, I'm Revati and stay with me because I'm going to show you exactly how this unique shaped card comes together from start to finish. I'll be using some really fun new products from This Calls for Confetti, and well, they have such a unique birthday theme product line. Now, first up, I will be sharing this beautiful birthday sentiment stamp set, which features 17 different sentiments. Yes, you heard it right. We have 17 birthday sentiments, giving you so many fun ways to personalize your cards. And the best part, 15 of those are designed to perfectly align with the three-tier cake stencil, or you can die cut them out all at once using the coordinating die. So you get multiple sentiments ready to go in one die cut. Now this is the coordinating dies which will cut out each of those sentiments, creating 15 sentiment labels and two separate sentiments which are bigger, also can be used as the focal point for your card. Now they also have this amazing three-tier cake stencil and die bundle. It includes layering stencils that help you build a fun dimensional cake for any occasion. And the coordinating die cuts out the entire piece perfectly. The finished cake is about 4 by 5 1/4 inches, so it fits beautifully inside a standard A2 size envelope. Now, I'll be using those two sets for our card today. There is also this gorgeous cloche hot foil plate and coordinating dies, which I'll definitely be using in an upcoming video. Initially, I was going to keep this card super simple, just stencil the cake directly onto an A2 size card panel and then stamp the sentiments right over the image. But as I was looking at the design, I thought this cake is just too fun to stay flat. Why not turn it into something a little more special? So instead, I decided to create a shaped card, and honestly, this completely changed the look of the project. I started with that big cake die you see there. This was part of the stencil and die bundle. I started with an A2 size panel and placed the cake die right over it. And this is the best part. You will notice that the entire design fits perfectly within that A2 size, which means we still get a fun, unique shape and it fits inside your standard A2 size envelope. Now, once I was happy with the placement, I ran it through my die cutting machine. And once it was out of the machine, just look at that beautiful cake shape. Already, it feels so much more playful and eye catching, and we haven't even added any color yet. You could absolutely stamp and stencil first and then go with your die cutting at the end. But personally, I like to die cut first. It just helps me avoid any accidental smudging or messy edges later on, especially when working with detailed designs like this one. So once I had my cake shape ready, I placed it on my stamp wheel and secured it in place using a little bit of washi tape along the base, just to make sure nothing shifts while I'm working. Next, I bought in one of the stencils, not just for stenciling itself, but also as a guide. This helps me perfectly align each tier of the cake. And it also gives me a really helpful reference for where my sentiments are going to sit later on. Taking a moment here to line everything up properly really makes the rest of the process so much more smoother and ensures everything comes together beautifully in the end. For this card, we are going to use an embossed resist technique where we add ink blending right over our embossed sentiments to make them really stand out. To start, I prepped my panel using an anti-static powder tool. This step is super important to avoid any stray embossing powder sticking where we don't want it to. Then I stamped my sentiments using obsidian pigment ink. This is by Altenew. And I actually stamped them twice just to get that really crisp, solid impression. Once that was done, I carefully peeled out this panel from my stamp wheel and then I put some clear embossing powder over it. And well, this is one of my favorite parts. That beautiful shine it adds instantly elevates the look of the sentiments. Now, I definitely prefer adding clear embossing powder to both my stamped sentiments as well as using any kind of stamped focal point images, whether I'm ink blending or coloring in an image using alcohol markers. This is a technique that I absolutely love using. Well, once I have my powder in place, I will funnel the rest back into the container. Then I will heat set everything using my heat tool. Now, since we are working with a larger surface area, I like to make sure my heat tool is fully heated before bringing it to the panel. And as I heat emboss, I keep the tool moving constantly, never staying in one spot for too long, just to prevent any warping. For shaped designs like this one, it's really important to maintain that structure as much as possible. But if you notice a bit of warping, don't worry, you can always place your panel under something heavy, like a stack of books, and it'll flatten it out beautifully. Here's a closer look at our finished panel. Isn't it absolutely stunning? The shine this gives is really beautiful. Before moving on to any ink blending, I like to let my panel rest for a bit and cool down completely. This step is really important because I don't want any of that embossing powder to smudge when I start ink blending over it. Once it is fully cooled, the embossing powder sets nice and firm, and that's exactly what we want for that clean embossed resist effect. Now, once ready, I placed my panel onto a sticky mat and lined up the first stencil from the bundle right over the cake. And honestly, these stencils are super easy to align, which makes the whole process so much more enjoyable. Now came the fun part, which was choosing colors. I'll admit I was a little confused at first. In one of my previous projects that I uploaded on Instagram just yesterday, I went all out with rainbow frosting. But for this card, I wanted to keep things a bit more simple and classic. So I chose soft pinks for my frosting and paired it with browns for the cake layers. And well, I have to say, this instantly took me back to my childhood. Chocolate cake was always my favorite and is even now my favorite. But I absolutely love that pink frosting on top, which I was convinced was strawberry. Now that I think it was probably just regular frosting with a little food coloring, but back then it felt so special. Projects like these really remind me of how simple and joyful those moments were. And I love how this card is coming together. The colors blend so beautifully, and it truly feels like a little piece of nostalgia, like being a 5 year old again, excited about a birthday cake. Maybe not a cake this big, but definitely just as sweet as this one. To keep the color gradient soft and a little more playful, I added lighter shade of pink right at the center of each of those layers and then slowly blended a darker shade towards the edges. It's a simple step, but that little bit of shading adds so much more depth and dimension to the cake and really makes those layers stand out. Once I was happy with the first stencil, I carefully peeled it off, taking my time here so I don't smudge anything. And then I got in stencil number two, which is going to add the base layers for each of those layers. And for this, I'm using some warm brown tones to bring in that chocolatey goodness. Just like we did with the pink frosting, I followed the same exact technique for the cake layers as well, adding a lighter shade of brown at the center and then blending in the darker shades towards the edges. Keeping that consistent shading really helps tie the whole design together. And it also adds so much texture and depth, honestly. It starts to make the cake look almost real. Let me know in the comments below. Are you team chocolate or team strawberry? Well, would you go for a classic chocolate cake or something fun like a strawberry cake or, like I'm doing here, chocolate cake with strawberry frosting? Let me know in the comments below. Well, with all this talk about cake, I'm seriously craving something sweet right now. But It's super late. It's almost midnight while I'm recording this voiceover, so I'm not sure I'll be getting any cake anytime soon. Anyways, let's get back to our card cake. Now, once I was done with stencil number two, I peeled it again gently, making sure nothing smudges. And then I bought in stencil number three, which creates the base or the cake stand. Now, for the stand, I used some mid to dark gray tones, slowly building up the color and adding a bit of shading to create those soft shadows and give it a more grounded look. You could definitely take this a step further and use some metallic inks for the cake stand to create a really beautiful, elegant base. Or even clean up your first two stencils and bring them back in to add some fun glitter paste to each of those layers, which would give this cake so much more shine and sparkle. But for this card, I decided to keep things a bit more simple, focusing on soft, beautiful coloring and soft ink blending. Sometimes less really is more, and I love how clean and elegant this is starting to look. Now that our main panel is completely ready, it's time to move on to the card base. For this, I'm creating a top folding A2 size card base. I have a piece of white cardstock that measures 11 by 4 1 quarter inches, and I'm going to score it right at 5.5 inches along the longer side. Once I fold it in half, it gives me a perfectly sized top folding A2 size card base. I really like using top folding card bases for shaped cards like this one. It gives the card a nice sturdy structure and makes it easy to display as well. And since our cake design fits inside an A2 size envelope, this base is going to work perfectly without needing any extra adjustments. Clean, simple, and ready for us to build our card. I'm going to keep my card base folded and then place the large cake die right on top. Now, this step is really important. You want to make sure that the top edge of the die slightly extends over the folded edge of your card base. That way, when you run it through your die cutting machine, it does not cut through that fold completely. We want that fold to stay intact because that's what's going to hold our shaped card together. So just take a moment here to double check your placement, making sure everything is aligned nicely before you send it through. Once that's done, you will have a perfectly shaped card base that opens up just like a regular card with a fun twist. I'm going to secure my die in place using a little bit of washi tape just to make sure it doesn't shift at all while going through the machine. Now, since we are working with a shaped card base, I really want to make sure that the cut is nice and precise. Now, this step is a little different from your usual die cutting. Typically, you'd run just a single panel through your die cutting machine, but here we are actually working with two layers at once because of that folded card base. And on top of that, the card bases are usually thicker than your regular panels. So just be a little careful when running this through your machine. You might feel a bit extra pressure, and that's completely normal. You don't want to force anything. Just take it slow and let your machine do the work. And here's a look at our clean, crisp cake shaped card base. I absolutely love how neat and smooth those edges turned out. It really makes the design feel so polished and professional. Now all that's left to do is assemble our front panel onto this card base and we are almost done. Now for shaped cards like this one, I usually prefer not to use any foam tape. Instead, I go with liquid glue and adhere the front panel directly on the card base. This helps everything line up perfectly and gives a much more seamless finish, especially along those curved edges. Just take a moment here to align everything nicely before pressing it down. And once that's adhered, your card is ready to pop open. You still have plenty of space inside that card to write your personal message. And I love that this design not only works as a card but also sits beautifully on a table as a little display piece. And with that, our cake shaped card is all done. I absolutely love how this turned out. From that soft ink blending and embossed sentiments to this fun, unique shape. It really feels like a little celebration in itself. And the best part, it still fits perfectly inside your standard A2 size envelope. so you get something special without any extra hassle. I hope this inspires you to step out of your usual rectangle cards and try creating something a little more playful and creative. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what's your favorite cake flavor. I will be sure to link all the supplies that I used to create this beautiful card down in the description box below. Please note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.